All right. Love that tune. Too bad I gotta change it because YouTube won't let me play it for copyright reasons. So I always gotta scrub it when I do the post edit. So welcome, folks. A little bit late because again I cocked up setting up the stream, and I'm like, why isn't things happening? And anyways, thanks for tuning in, folks. Really appreciate it. Today we're going over this funny thing that I learned how I didn't fight in a war. Who would have thought? I thought I was in a war. I mean, bullets were coming downrange towards me. um, I was in a uniform that implied that I was in the military, but no, apparently, according to Veterans Affairs, I didn't fight in a war, and neither did you, most likely, because unless you fought in World War II or Korea, sucks to you, buddy. You didn't fight in a war. What's going on? Well, folks, if this is your first time tuning in, I'm Dave, and you're tuning into the live Thursday stream of the Hard to Kill podcast. If this is your first time, drop it in the comments. Say, hey, it's first time like a virgin. It's your first time here. Hey. And for all you diehard veterans, welcome again to another stream here. We've got Homa Hashalaga tuning in. Bonjour. Debbie McKenzie watching from Alberta right on. And Honey QB. What's up, folks? Glad you could be here. So I'm going to go over a few things today, and we're going to obviously start with our moment of share and shill. I'm going to start with something that I'm hosting on Monday. If you weren't aware, we are doing the 30 to lean challenge. What is the 30 to lean challenge, you say? 30 to lean, let's make that bigger. That's way too small. That's better. There you go. If you're wondering, yes, that is my sexy body. I'm putting myself out there. Dad of two, 43 years old, getting her done, getting a little bit uncomfortable, but that's what I'm here to do. Okay. To inspire. So I've come up with a system that has consistently gotten me to lose weight. Yes, I do yo-yo from time to time. Like, for instance, right now, I'm just in a fatty phase. So it's perfect timing. I'm going to do it with you. If you want to join a really friendly, veteran based weight loss challenge, which is not crash dieting, it's 30 days of actually learning how to take care of your nutrition, take care of your health, and have zero CrossFit, like zero. We're talking about just going for a walk. The goal here is to learn and to be consistent. And if this is something that interests you, we start on Monday, doors close on Sunday night. We've already got 153 members. We're kicking ass and taking names. It's going to be hosted in my Veterans Getting Fit AF community. Okay. Some of the details are here. You can head to the site. I'm going to drop the details here in the description. It's going to be right here in the comments as well. That gets fired off. Read what we got here, but I'll give you the gist. We're going to have some excellent guest speakers. And by excellent, I mean like world class. So let me just share with you who those individuals are. We're going to have Dr. Philip Avadia, a 2-time guest of the Hard to Kill podcast. He has written the book, Stay Off My Operating Table, and his handle on Instagram is I Fix Hearts. He's a cardiac surgeon and learned many years ago that the way we go about telling people how to eat and how to live is 100% incorrect. And he's going to completely destroy the paradigm that you likely have around dietary cholesterol and fat, and why it's so important to have a new paradigm, and coming directly from a cardiac surgeon who literally opens people up and opens people's hearts up. He's going to give you the nitty gritty, the down and dirty as to what it's all about, what you need to be doing in order to stay off his operating table. He's going to be talking. We've got Mike Bledsoe, Navy veteran. He's a mindset expert, was the host of the Barbell Shrug podcast back in the day. If you were a CrossFitter, you knew who this guy was. He's now dedicated his entire business effort to helping veterans start their mission after, and talk about relationships specifically and how important they are to cultivate once you're out of the military. And Dr. Teresa Larson, she's a USMC veteran, and she's going to be talking about movement and deep health and how you can improve it one step at a time. She's going to be an awesome resource to ask questions to, but you only get access to this if you are a member of the community and participating in the 30 to lean challenge. So again, the link is here in the description. If you have any questions, hit me up on socials. And you can find me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm there every day. And you can start asking me some questions if you want a little bit more clarity on it. But this is the way to get you down a few pounds before the holiday season and start processing the information that we start sending your way in order to not have that insidious weight gain of 3 to 5 pounds. And it's all done between now and Christmas. And make sure that you actually start going the opposite direction, losing weight rather than putting weight on that never actually gets taken off. So that's 30 lean challenge. Really excited about that. Another thing that I wanted to point you towards is Citizen Green TV. So what's cool is you may have seen some posts. I saw some posts on Facebook recently about Citizen Green TV. I thought I was like the only guy tracking this because I'm going to be featured on Citizen Green TV. So thanks to the Grunt Style Foundation and thanks to Grunt Style, we've come up with a little partnership. So my content was going to be showing up on here. What's Citizen Green TV, you ask? It's the only veterans plant-based and alternative health and wellness hub. So if we scroll a little bit further down, you can see here we've got Tim Jensen right here. He's the CEO of Grunt Style. He's there obviously because the Grunt Style Foundation is one of the main hosts of this new venture. And I think this is just freaking awesome. When they approached me, I was like, hell yeah. Like, what do you need me to do? I'll do it all. So if you want to catch some content, not necessarily on YouTube, you're going to be able to catch some here on Citizen Green TV. We're just starting. So content's not up yet, but it will be in the near future. So you can subscribe. You can just send an email address. All right. So simple as that. So head over to Citizen Green TV and start your membership today. Can't wait. I'm fired up. That you know what? Tim's here. Tim's a beauty. He's actually written the foreword to my new book. That'll be coming out in a few weeks. I'll be doing more about that. I'm really focused on the weight loss challenge for now. So more to follow on my new book, but I'm super pumped about that as well. And Tim was kind enough to write the foreword to the book. It's going to be freaking awesome. You're going to get a lot of insights from the health and fitness world that it's sometimes hard to kind of glean everything that comes from the podcast, right? There's, I've got 200 and something plus episodes. You're not going to listen to them all. Well, maybe you do. Like if somebody here's listened to literally every episode, congratulations. Like let me know in the comments. That'd be huge. You're like a power user. That would be pretty cool. Even episode 1 in the intro episode, which are pretty rough. Whew, I went back and listened to them. I had a hard time listening to them, but the good thing is if I didn't have a hard time listening to them, it would mean I haven't grown and haven't improved. So it's always important to go back and listen to where you cut your teeth. So moving on, folks, I wanted to go into veteran land right now. So our moment of share and shill is over. We're going to go into veteran land and look at what is popping off in the news. So in the Ottawa Citizen, just recently on October 2nd, legal action underway to force Canadian forces to release propaganda documents. Oh, man. Talk about a doozy. Whew. How did I not see this? A professor is taking D&D to court to force the release of records about the Canadian military's various propaganda schemes, including its 2020 fake wolves exercise. Do you guys remember that? That was weird, eh? That was in Nova Scotia. There was this fake wolves alert. And everyone was freaking out like, oh my God, there's wolves. Turns out it was a pure psyop. It was a psyop. Really weird, eh? So what's going on here? A professor is taking the Department of National Defense to court in an effort to force it to release records about Canadian military's program to target members of the public in various propaganda schemes. So this is weird, eh? Because this is the start of COVID. If you guys remember, I know 4 years ago seems like 40 years ago, but yeah, this was the start of COVID. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you can read it. Nope, not that one. That one. The application for judicial review was filed in federal court in September in Vancouver on behalf of Emma Bryant, an associate professor at Monash University in Australia, and an expert, I'm having a hard time reading, in military propaganda. That's interesting. So I wonder why she was able to do that. She's a professor Uh, I'm associate professor, University of. Oh, okay. So she must be Canadian, but she works for the University of Australia, Monash, Australia's Monash University. Okay, that makes sense because I don't think foreign nationals can do ATIP requests. That'd be weird. So with that being said, the Privacy Commissioner of Canada has already ruled that D&D violated Bryant's rights for failing to disclose the documents. Well, that's no surprise, right? I mean, that's like rampant right now. Folks are putting in ATIP requests and they're just not being fulfilled. And the law states that they have to be. But really, what's the repercussion of not doing it? They can basically say, like, go pound sand, go bring a lawyer, is basically what they're saying here. So this is just one of these interesting stories that will likely need to be followed up on. And it's definitely part of the bigger picture of just corruption in general, right? And lucky for you guys for being avid listeners, I've got a guest coming on the show that I've already interviewed, and we're doing a part 2 that's going to be talking about this level of corruption and ATIPs, and it involves the secret squirrels here. It involves high levels of government. It involves the trucker convoy. It's like, it's crazy. So you're definitely going to want to subscribe if you're not subscribed, because you're going to want to check this episode out. It's going to hurt your brain a little bit, but I can't wait to drop it next week, maybe the week after. I want to make sure I have both episodes so you can go back to back. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really cool. Next up, what are we looking at here? Calgary veterans call for resolution to bedbug infestation. Ew, we're living in a war zone. What the hell is this? What the hell is this? Does anybody know about this? This is the first I hear about it. This is posted October 23rd. We're the 24th today. Okay, so let's listen in. Let's see what this is all about.
Our Calgary veterans that have lived through many difficult situations. Frank Dyke, a sniper overseas.
I don't like talking about it.
And Jim Sullivan, facing homelessness following years of service. They moved into this 16-suite supportive living complex in the Beltline in 2013. But lately, they've been dealing with a bedbug infestation, resurging every few months for the past year.
We live in a war zone, but we can't fight back.
Well, they argued for 2 months of who was going to pay for it. Instead of spraying the whole building, they're doing a unit at a time.
Dyke says he's now sleeping on a mat from the drop-in center after his latest round of furniture became infested.
I just purchased my bed, $1,700.
The property is managed by HomeSpace. They say they try to deal with infestations immediately. They say they've fumigated this building 5 times just since August, but that residents struggle to properly prepare for such treatments. Furniture does sometimes need to be removed, but it says Alpha House manages social supports for the building, including furniture and its replacement. There's a conflict on the current state of their suites and who's providing what. Alpha House says all of their occupied units are now fully furnished, providing these photos they say were taken during checks last week, including in Dyke's unit. But the Veterans Association say they were providing furniture as recent as this past Tuesday.
If we didn't jump in, these guys would be still sitting on patio furniture or even milk crates.
Alpha House saying in a statement it's working on all possible solutions, including relocation of residents where necessary. But Dyke says that isn't an option for him. Time is running out.
I'm basically dying. I got less than 50% of my kidneys left. I like to have a rest of my time. Enjoy it a little bit.
He says his unit is scheduled for its next round of fumigation next week. Sarah.
What do you folks think about that? This is the first I hear of Alpha House, so I don't think it's just for veterans, right? Social housing. Unlike here, where I literally am right now, this is a residence executive suites for veterans in transition, only for veterans. So, yeah, that's a shame. It's a real shame. I know with bed bugs, man, you got to eradicate them all, or else they just keep on coming back, man. It's a real big problem in a lot of hotels and stuff like that. And that's just a shame, right? They got to do complete fumigation for sure. And yeah, those old timers, man, it sucks if you don't have a place to stay that's stable, and especially, he's struggling there. So hope everything gets sorted out there. Okay. So let's see here. Let's head the comments. What we got going on? Diatomaceous earth. What are we talking about here? I just had a conversation with somebody about diatomaceous earth. That's why. Oh man. And pet and human safe. Okay. Pet and human safe. It'll kill the bugs. Okay. Interesting. So moving on to the heart of what I wanted to talk about today. Has to do with veterans that fought in basically any war since Korea. There's news to me, but we're not really combat veterans. We haven't been considered for wartime benefits. So if you're listening and you're like, yeah, of course, Dave, like, duh. Okay, well, I'm catching up. Okay, I'm trying to keep up. And that's part of having the conversation here. The podcast is that I'm learning new things as we go along, which is pretty cool. And to give you guys just a quick update, I was chatting with, nope, don't want that one. Just chatting with Jody Middick. And, we were having the conversations about how the Veterans Affairs treats its veterans. And for somebody like Jody, who's missing both his legs, to be under the constant sword of Damocles that if you get out of line, you don't submit paperwork on time, we'll just cut you right off. That doesn't sit well with me, because if, like you said, if they can do it to him, they could do it to me, or they can do it to anybody. And it's the way policies are actually crafted that allow a bureaucrat to just arbitrarily say, well, you didn't fulfill this one criteria, so you no longer get your benefit. That doesn't sit well with him, nor does it sit well with me. So just a quick update. He told me to pass the word along that he is supposed to have a conversation with the Deputy Minister of Veterans Affairs. That hasn't been sorted yet, so more to follow on that. I did want to go over some of the, and unfortunately I closed them. I don't know why I did that. I wanted to go over some of the comments that were made on the video, because we've been asking folks to submit some of their experiences, right? So the unfortunate reality is that this isn't anything new. This is something that has been going on for a while. And if we look at just some of the comments here, I'll just share them with you. When I open up the video that me and Jody did a few weeks back, they're a bit disheartening. I'm not going to lie. So everybody should be able to see that now.
Experience the joy of fast heartburn relief.
I don't care about fast heartburn relief. So going over some of the comments here, and I'll just show Tracy Short here. My personal opinion, any veteran that has served in combat should not pay any taxes. Any veteran that was injured during combat duty should be cared for with full medical and psychological options available. The system is broken, and according to Trudeau, they are asking for more than we can give. That's a quote from him. Yet we pay full pensions and medical benefits to politicians and every federal employee that may or may not be sitting at home in their pajamas collecting our money. Veterans should be top tier and the idiots in Ottawa on the lowest tier. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's no federal worker that has their pension with strings attached, right? They work, they pay into their pension, they retire, and they get a pension. I don't see how this is any different for us in terms of because they're clear to not call it a pension. And there's obviously reasons for that. They call it benefits, they call it awards. And Jody brought that up in our conversation, right? Because it allows them to do things to the payment structure and the schedule that wouldn't be seen as favorable in any other domain, in any other branch of the federal public service, for sure. Now, there's one here that I really wanted to go over, and unfortunately I may not find it. I think this is it here. Yeah. A direct quote from Veterans Affairs to me in 2007, 2008. After I came back from Afghanistan, you are not a real veteran because you never fought in a real war. Veterans Affairs does not give a damn about veterans. Is a bureaucracy that only cares about its bottom line. Also, if you go back in the 90s when we were involved in the former Yugo, there are several stories about Veterans Affairs screwing over vets by not purchasing wheelchairs and things of that nature. The two commonalities between now and then is that the Liberal government was in power. I'm not saying that Veterans Affairs is better when the Conservatives are in power, but because it isn't, however, it is way worse when the Liberals are in power. So yeah, that was really interesting because I'm a member of Trouble Victor, so 3V, and we're just at our monthly social last night. And Mark Walden was one of the founding members of Trouble Victor, and there's a Mark Walden Award, and it was handed out last night to our president, Dave Sutcliffe. Shout out to Dave. And Mark was in the former Yugoslavia and got sick from toxic exposure, which ultimately killed him. And just that alone is troubling because he wasn't the only one that got sick and died from the toxic exposure over there. And now we're seeing it with GWAT veterans, Afghanistan, Iraq. And the level of care, and especially for those that fought in Medak Pocket, I read the book, Ghosts of Medak. There was no mention of the fact that Canadians were in the middle of a war, because that's what it was. It was full on war. They came home, they wanted to sweep it under the rug, and then effectively tell the veterans to go pound sand. You're not getting any recognition nor coverage of the toxic exposure and that weird, like it was red sand or whatever, the red dirt that they were exposed to. And that being said, like now we're seeing history repeat itself again in the GWAT veterans. We breathed in all those toxic fumes from the burn pits, not to mention just the sheer amounts of radiation you got from sitting next to the comms units. Like it was just, JP8, like the list goes on and on and on. And last week I covered the fact that veterans are starting to see now Veterans Affairs come around and award them, a service-related injury for cancers based on toxic exposure. So we're starting to see cracks of light happen. And I'm hoping that starts to accelerate a little bit more. And interesting enough, I just had an individual on the podcast just before getting online here and starting the live that talks about genetic testing and identifying susceptibilities to certain toxins. And he was for years very sick and had chronic pain and couldn't figure it out. Medical doctors couldn't figure it out. He couldn't figure it out until he realized he had a susceptibility to lead, and his lead levels were insane. Now, I'm not saying that all of us have a susceptibility to lead, but just that alone, knowing that you may have a genetic predisposition to a certain toxin could start clearing things up for a lot of us, because I think a lot of our mental health issues are related to exposure, not necessarily the traumatic things we may have seen, but those that we experienced in our bodies. And I think if we start that conversation, we're going to start realizing that a lot of folks that may have assumed, or the doctors may have assumed that you have quote unquote PTSD, are actually suffering from destroyed endocrine systems, poisoning from lead, you name it. And if you can clear those up and you start feeling better, hey man, now we got a completely different system. But here's the rub. How do you get a doctor to actually start going down that path with you? Because all of us are forced to go into our public system, and it's province to province. There is no VA or VAC based medical system like they have in the United States. So you have these doctors that are completely clueless. And, I had this conversation with Jody as well. Like, I go to my doctor and he's like, "Oh, why were you in Afghanistan?" Because I was fighting the freaking war, man. He's like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool." And I've known him for like 15 years. It's still kind of, he doesn't know the battle damage. He doesn't track why I'm looking for toxic exposure and markers that he can't even test for. He doesn't understand, that the lingering issues can have long lasting effects. He's just concerned. He's like, "Oh, your cholesterol's a little high. Maybe we should put you on a statin." It's like, bro, come on. And if you're dealing with serious injuries like amputations, they don't get it. We did stuff that was insanely difficult and suffered a lot of battle damage, but our medical system is not equipped to deal with it. the best analogy would be like we're a pro athlete and we have all the battle damage, but we're getting subpar medical attention and therapists, right? That don't know what to do with us. A pro athlete, like a guy like LeBron James, I think spends $2 million on his trainer, you name it. Like they look at recovery, like it is a science, right? Because he's got 22 years in the NBA. Okay, I'm not saying I'm LeBron. I'm not saying anyone's like LeBron. Okay, no, I want you guys looking like bros. Dave's saying that he's like LeBron James. No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that when you go do some war fighting, you know, the amount of a demand on the body and then the battle damage that you take on requires a much more nuanced approach, and everybody's a little different. So that means you need to have flexibility in the system. Well, flexibility costs money. And going to your regular run-of-the-mill doctor and he sees you maybe once a year because that's all he can do, unless you have something serious go wrong, we got a broken system. So I'm hoping that we can start the conversation and start pushing for more in terms of, I guess, awareness, but also to start lobbying so that we can actually get the care that we need. And there's not many of us. You know, there's not many of us. There's what, 40,000 Afghan veterans, if that. There's a lot of us did multiple tours. I'm not one of them. So that, you know, could you take some of those billions of dollars that go to these like fluffy programs and just say, hey, we're just going to like establish a nationwide health service for veterans and get some doctors on board and be like, you just work with veterans from now on. How hard is that to set up? I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I'm just totally naive. What do you folks think? Am I totally naive? We shut down like the Veterans Hospital, like I can almost see from my house. I mean, it's like 10 minutes away, but it went to the province. It's a shell of what it used to be. I can't believe they just let that go. And then that would have been the only like reasonable place, right, to have like the center of excellence for veteran care. But they just gave it up. They're like, nah, we don't need this anymore. Well, the war drums keep beating, man. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. Once if you have a pile of veterans coming back from a war that's being fought in Europe yet again, what are you going to do? You spool it all up again in true Canadian fashion, panic and do everything under panic rather than foresee the next wave. Anyways, do you folks think I'm onto something here? Should we have a national level healthcare system for veterans? Curious to know. All right, so let's just get into, we got Adventure Man, Chimo. Yeah. What does Chimo stand for? I hear it all the time. All you engineers like, Chimo, is it Latin? Never got to the heart of that one. Odious Patton back here again. Good to have you back. Let's see here. We got Thomas Griffin. You got a gripe here. Let's hear it. Been fucked by the dermatologist. Oh, fucked off. Sorry. Bro, I'm not a therapist. Maybe. Okay, cool. Got it. Then given the runaround by my cardiologist, preached it to the choir, broke my back twice. Then they lied for 11 years until the LT spilt the beans by accident. Okay, so from what I'm hearing here, okay, they're screwing up your shit. Yeah. Homage, like because you're a dreaming man. They don't care about Canadians and really less about veterans. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, government's supposed to be the branch of the will of the people, right? All we need to do is just get vocal. That's it. It's just we haven't been vocal because we haven't had a unified front. It's easy to pick us off individually, right? Vaccines, medical, but depression therapy, chemo, etc. Bring in dollars. Yeah, I agree. There's definitely a medical industrial complex that we need to fight against. That's for sure. But hey, you're in the right place to be healthier and harder to kill, right? You know, pay the farm now or pay the farm later. That's what I say. So let's get into this video here that I wanted to show you guys about not being a real veteran. So if you've heard this before, then my apologies, but let's fire this up.
Designed while we were over there. And,
it's one of the
Start that again.
This is the Gulf War jacket that they designed while we were over there. And,
it's one of the few items Doug Saunders has from his service in the Gulf War. but he does still hold plenty of memories of that frightening time in 1991.
It was nerve-wracking. A lot of times it's in the middle of the night when the action alarm goes off and you don't know what it is. Like the Scud missiles are very inaccurate, but
He says it felt like a war, but federal legislation governing injury benefits and veteran recognition doesn't treat it that way. Not for him or veterans of any other conflicts since the Korean War, including Canada's longest deployment, Afghanistan.
Longest deployment. Even the newscasters can't say war. I call it the Afghan War. I'm pretty sure I was in a war. But even the newscasters are like, oh, it's a long deployment. Are you serious? You're going to call it a deployment? It's not a deployment is part of the war. Anyways, even the newscaster gets me upset on this one.
All thanks to a legislative change in 2006, setting off this war of words.
A German bullet will pay 100% insurance. A Korean bullet will pay 100% insurance. But if you are unfortunate to be shot by the Taliban, you're only getting 20 cents on the dollar for that injury.
Injured veteran Kevin Sammy Sampson told a parliamentary committee he's done the math and found veterans of the World and Korean wars who did what's called wartime service receive more compensation for injuries than those who did what's now dubbed special duty service.
All right, so this is news to me. All right, wartime service and special duty service. All right, so let's unpack this a little bit. Is this implying that due to policy, they don't want to give us wartime service as a designator because they have to pay more, and by extension, I'm assuming more to our spouses and children? Because if I understand correctly, because my grandfather fought in the second, my grandma got a pension. Like, he passed away when I was like 3 or 4, so I don't really remember him, but I know she got money from his wartime pension. So is that what they're worried about? That, oh my God, we got involved in wars and we don't want to have to pay these veterans out? Is that all this is? So special duty service. This is something that now I'm kind of intrigued about. Special duty service. So is that why nobody in the media, even Veterans Affairs, calls Afghanistan a war? Or that deployments to Croatia wasn't a war, that Cyprus wasn't a war, or that being deployed to Iraq wasn't a war? How do you, and we have this big focus on peacekeeping missions. Is that what this is? Is this just an insurance scam? If so, like, that's so disheartening. Is that why we don't get, is this why we don't have a VC from Afghanistan? Because it doesn't make any sense that we don't have a Victoria Cross recipient. It doesn't make any sense because Australia does, the UK does. Does New Zealand? Maybe. I have to look that up. But we don't. How is that possible? Like, I know General Hillier, and I had Giselle on too to talk about that issue. Like, how is it possible that we don't have a VC? There was such fierce fighting during that war. Even if there's just one, right? VC, it puts a kind of signature on the war that, yeah, this was a freaking war. But is it because the VC can only be issued during wartime in the face of the enemy? Does that explain it? Is that like the cover up? It's not very good, but I mean, that would explain a lot. And if that's the case, like, this is kind of the biggest issue that we need to solve. Is it not? I don't know. What do you guys think? If this were to get sorted, this would clear up a lot of the issues, because then you couldn't justify having things like PCVRS, right? Because you would come under this policy, which goes back to the Second World War in Korea. You would just get because I looked at the schedules, right? I looked at the schedules, and like, they have a schedule sorted out for how much you get if you have a wife, or like a husband, and if you have a kid. And so you're making a few $1,000, right? Based off those schedules. So instead of this, which seems pretty practical and straightforward, they create this convoluted, impractical, bureaucratic system to take care of the special duty service gals and bros like us. So what does it take to get rid of this? That's my question. Like, this seems like the core reason why we're fighting all the time. They don't recognize this as having gone to war, when clearly we went to war. But based off of the policy, we didn't. This seems like a Monty Python skit or just some like weird alternate universe. Is this the right time to use Kafka-esque? That's my new word of the day. You can fact check me. I don't know if I used that correctly. Kafka-esque. For all you like nerdy word, like book types, let me know. Honeycube, I use Kafka-esque correctly? Okay, sweet. Thanks. I went to university. I just didn't go for English. So that's great. Thanks. And Odious Patton. Yeah, Jess La Rochelle. Yeah, I was just having a hard time remembering his name. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, he was severely wounded and fought off the Taliban and saved his platoon, right? Like, that is, in my mind, VC worthy. But no VCs for you. And like I said in my last episode last week, I submitted my request for the sacrifice medal, which a lot of us would theoretically qualify for. But again, it's Canada. They don't push it to you. It's weird that you have to apply for your own medal. It doesn't make any sense. It should be something that is, sent off by your commanding officer or the, Veterans Affairs. If they recognize, hey, you got like a service related injury that happened in theater and it meets our criteria, here's your, in the States, Blue Cross, but in this case, sacrifice medal. Very interesting world we live in here. Let's just put it that way. So I like this. La médaille de la VC fera craquer le barrage. That's very good. So I'll translate that. The VC would open the floodgates. And I think you're right. If we gave a VC to somebody, it would open the floodgates to say, like, well, this can only be awarded during wartime. This was war. So therefore, the 40,000 of us that fought during the war require some better compensation. Interesting. Okay, carry on. I trailed on for too long.
We've been calling missions anything but war, and we've been calling it very specifically special duty service. And the purpose of that is to deny injury benefits or disability benefits from veterans who are injured.
The Department of National Defense and Veterans Affairs both.
Okay. Does anybody here know Sammy? Is it Sammy Sampson? Is it Sammy Sampson? Is that his name? Let's see here. I don't know him. Kevin Sammy Sampson. Okay, I'd love to have a chat with him on the podcast. Okay, if you guys have me on Instagram or Facebook or X, drop me a message. Be like, yeah, I can put you in touch. I want to have a chat with him. I want to talk about this some more and just have a conversation. Obviously, he's well versed in the subject, and I think we need to push this button a bit more.
Declined interviews, although top military brass at that same committee acknowledged the two categories.
Applying these categories is not meant to signal greater or lesser respect for service members.
Veterans Affairs insists modern-day veterans simply receive different kinds of benefits, like employment support and rehabilitation.
Can we simplify this, make it easier, and make it fair so that every veteran is treated fairly and equally?
This battle, not just for Gulf War veterans, but all those who have served at their own risk. Heidi Petracek, Global.
All right. So, so there we go. I mean, I'll be honest, like, until we clarify these things and sort them out, it's going to be a really hard sell if there's another conflict, right? A conflict. I mean, I can't even help myself. Another war. Okay. If there's another war, we're already in the middle of it. We're already funding the Ukraine-Russia war to the tune of a few $1 billion. We're clearly on a side. We're in the war. We train their officers and soldiers. We're in the war. Just because we're not literally exchanging blows with the Russians doesn't mean we're not in the war. What's to say that doesn't escalate? And then what? We just have the same old system? I think it's the bureaucratization of things and The this is going to be hard for me. Infantilization. There we go. I said it fast. Of the entire system to kind of like when you bureaucratize something. Mike Bledsoe said it really well. He's like the best way to defeat and like demoralize a warfighter is to make him or her fight for their disability benefits. Yeah, I think he's like 100% bang on. I mean, you're a warrior, and then you have to deal with these patronizing entities that gaslight you constantly to make you feel that, oh, maybe you didn't fight a war. Oh, maybe my friends that I lost, it wasn't really in a war. It was just in some conflict. Dude, I have conflicts at home with my wife and my kids. It's not the same as a war. I'm not trying to kill anybody, and vice versa. So we have this really interesting dynamic now, and it's coming to a head. And that's what was good about the Afghan war, because I don't think politicians can think further than their nose. They've got a crop of young folks, myself included. And by young, I mean, late 30s, early 40s, early 50s, that still got a lot of gas left. And a lot of us got punted for psychological issues, which I'm starting to think, I don't think we were like, at least in my case, I don't know how much of it was psychological, but more physical. Like I said, endocrine disruption, toxic exposure, all these things, I think had a bigger role to play than the actual psychological issues. I think it was just a symptom of a beat up body. So with that being said, how do we take the next steps so that we can actually see change? And I think it's only going to come about from, rallying around organizations like Veterans for Freedom, and there's a few others that are popping up too, but the main one right now, that's why I'm on this platform, is Veterans for Freedom, and then uniting forces with veterans all around the planet, because we're all seeing the same issues, including like in Holland, in the Netherlands. They have a union, and they're pissed, man. They're super pissed about the Afghan war because they didn't provide enough clarity. They're not supporting their guys on the way out. They have some of the same issues, and in the US, they got the same issues too. So the more we can interconnect and see the commonalities in our problems, the more we can have a united front and see what other folks are doing, so that we can apply the same strategies. And rather than go full head on like YOLO into confrontation with the government, we got to be smart. Like we've all learned, a lot of us, how to flank and use psychological operations and be intelligence analysts. Like, we have a lot of skill sets. We can do this. It's just we need to be smart about it, because we need to, at the end of the day, we want us to be taken care of. So that's what I do here. So last thing I wanted to just cover off here is just let's just look at what they showed here on the video, right? They were looking at, this is the Veteran Wellbeing Act, and this is what came out in 2006. And in my conversation with Jody, he's been mentioning this, and I had nothing to do with this back in 2006. I was in, but I didn't know anything about this. I didn't realize how this might impact my life down the road. But it's a big piece of legislation. And from what he was saying, the initial thrust was to have the veteran population and the RCMP come under this banner. And the RCMP was like, you can go suck eggs. This isn't going to happen. But they have a union. They have somebody to negotiate for the organization. And I think that's the reason why we get the short end of the stick. There's no veteran union. There's no union in the military. And I think we're at the point now where there's an inevitability, and the initial folks that are going to take that leap and in the Canadian Armed Forces start a union are going to eat shit, because they're going to get charged. They're going to be drummed out potentially, but there has to be somebody to actually take that action and start the process, because I think that's the only way the abuses are going to stop. Like, the abuses of power are just absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And they're all coming out to light now because we have the internet and we have meme pages, and I get a trickle and I share what's going on. What's happened over the last 30, 40 years, like, some of the stories are just absolutely disgusting. Like, basically it's torture for a lot of folks. And that can't happen. And if you had a union, you can hold people responsible. You can hold administrators responsible. and we get treated like dog shit. Then they want us to be this big bureaucratic force with no union. Come on, you can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. So either we focus completely on war fighting, and the pointy edge of the stick is where all the resources go. But clearly that's not the case. They wanted to bureaucratize our entire military, to mollify us and make us basically like HRDC. So, okay, well, if that's the case, then we want a union, just like public affairs, you know, just like any other department, just like the civil servants here. You know, they go on strike, they can do that. You know, if we go to war, it's like, hold on a sec, you got to go through our union first. We want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed before we embark on this war. It's insane that they can, in our government, they could basically just decide, okay, we're just going to go to war. Yeah, we all agree. Okay, cool. They don't need to consult with anybody. They don't need to vote. The most important thing that a nation can do is go to war, but yet we just go to war without a referendum. It's not democratic. That's just like, yeah, I'm deciding we're going to war. Well, who the fuck are you, Prime Minister, to say we're going to war? Do I get a say? I'm in the army, you know, or I'm a dad. I got kids. Who's to say my kids have to go to war? I want to have a say in that. It's just we have a lot of deeper issues. I mean, we can't solve them all here, right? One thing at a time. But anyways, I got on a tangent. Veteran Wellbeing Act, and then there's some criticism here from the Legion. Before I get into that, let's look at some of the comments. See them popping in slowly but surely. Thanks, Honey QB. Definitely coming together to air our grievances respectfully. Yeah, absolutely. You know, there was a veteran stakeholder forum a few months ago here in Montreal, and it was just not what I was expecting. just put it that way. And I wrote a LinkedIn post about it, a LinkedIn article about it, and it got some good traction because I think I hit a nerve. It didn't reflect the main issue, and that's we're not getting proper care. You know, like if you're an organization that's supposed to care and supposed to provide care and services, then how come you're not doing that well? And it just turned into kind of like a bitch session, and it was all individuals, right, that had grievances, and they had like an open like kind of bitch session. I'm like, that's not going to get us anywhere. So it didn't really have any value, you know, other than a dog and pony show, which is essentially what it was. So yeah, we need to have something that's a lot more concrete, and we need to get a lot of the younger folks. I'm sounding like I'm an old man. We need to get just a lot of the younger crew engaged, right? Because I think what's happened is like a lot of us younger veterans, our families are young as well. So a lot of us got back into the workforce as well. So we're kind of like, man, am I really going to take on like veteran issues? Like that part of me is like, that's long gone. That's like 15 years ago. I just want to hang out with my kids and just do what I got to do. Do I want to like take up the torch and like fight for veteran stuff? I think it might be a hard sell for a lot of folks. They just want to forget it. And I get it. I understand. Like I was like that for a while too. So I think that's kind of what we're dealing with. There's just not many of us. So, you know, we need to lean on some of the older, folks, right, that are, you know, Gulf War veterans, right? For instance, Medak Pocket veterans, Bosnia veterans, Cyprus veterans, to try and unite the cause, because our causes are a little bit different. But, you know, in terms of, you know, there's like a mefloquine issue, but now there's like a vaccine issue. Like, so we have all these like varying issues that we're really passionate about, but ultimately the big umbrellas that we're just not being taken care of. So we need to figure out a way to unite that front. I agree. Mark Smith, good to see you're dipping your toe into ideas as opposed to everyone else usually battling to be the master of the obvious. Yeah, we're trying here. Odious Patton, you're talking about disbanding the RCMP. What are we talking about here, man? Disbanding, what do we get instead? Don't we need something? To have in the frontier lands? I don't know. All I know is that they're not doing well. They're not doing well as an organization. I'm not part of it, obviously. I just have some friends that have served there and have operated with them. And I did a little work with them as a military member with a non-police matter. It was just sort of shocking to see how they operated and how they treated their folks, just on like a tasking level. I was just not impressed, but I don't want to judge the whole organization based off one experience. Why do you think a union is useful, considering how all unions worldwide instantly abandon their members during? Yeah, you know what? You bring up a very good point, Mark. I was abandoned. I was working for the public service at the time. So I think the union would strike a bit of not fear, but force them to be more responsible. Because I don't have any other solution, I'll be honest. Yeah, my union completely abandoned me. They said, well, the government says you have to. So, and I'm like, but I work from home. I don't, what do you, like, I don't ever go to the office. They're like, well, you kind of have to. I mean, isn't that the point of your job, is to push back against government regulation? Because if not, then you're just part of the government. And why do I pay dues? They didn't have an answer for me. They really didn't like that. So I lost my job, but thankfully I have veteran benefits. Yeah. So I see your point. No, I do see your point. 100%. And then last question here, or last comment: legions are what they used to be to vets, military, and yeah, exactly. The legion is just a shell of its former self. So I don't know if it's the right institution to try and bring back to life or not. I don't think it is. I think it's from a bygone era. So we're rapidly moving into a decentralized world. So I don't know. But I'll just finish here, guys, because it's getting close to kid pickup time in my world. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. The Legion had some issues with the Veteran Wellbeing Act, and the things are not well defined, and details are urgently needed to understand their impact on all veterans and their families. And they are information provided by the government around the new pain and suffering compensation implemented on the 1st of April 2019 is not clear. It is unclear if gaps will remain in a disabled veteran's lifelong financial security. Yeah, that's literally what we're talking about here. Like, Jody's missing his legs. Like, this is what we're talking about. It is unclear if gaps will remain in disabled veterans' lifelong financial security. And I think they're more concerned about when you hit 65, is there still coverage enough to, be like well off enough that you can manage, or do you just follow on OAS? Information provided by the government around the new additional pain and suffering compensation implemented in 2019 is not clear. 3 grades of compensation have been identified, but there are no details on how those grades are calculated. Yeah, that's a problem. Information provided by the government around the income replacement benefit in 2019 is not clear. There are no details on what the adjustments will be for eligible veterans who have not yet served a full career in the military. Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, and the whole deal with this, I mean, from my perspective, as a veteran who receives the income replacement benefit, is that like I don't fully. It's not transparent. How long do I get to stay on this, and how much work do I have to do to maintain it? And I always feel like it's going to get cut, because I mean, I have had it suspended for 3 months because they overpaid. And that's a whole other question. Like, they overpay, and then you go to CRA and say, well, they overpaid me, but I pay taxes on that money. And they just basically told me to go hit the bricks. What do you want us to do? Go talk to Veterans Affairs. I'm like, but I did. And they said, go to talk to CRA. It's just, the system is just so convoluted, and you never get the same answer from anybody, because they've made it into this big complex, like Lego construction of like Duplo blocks and Lego and like constructs, and like they just keep on building on a shitty foundation. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't know the first thing about like where I'm going with this whole process. I'm always worried that next month I'm just not going to have an income. It's not a good way to live, I'll be honest. It provides one of the highest levels of stress in my like day-to-day or month to month. At least with a job, it's like, no, you have a contract and you have this job until, the contract's over, or you suck at your job and you lose your job, or the company downsizes. But at least, like, unless something really bad happens, you're going to get your pay. I just don't know every month if my pay is going to come in. And, most of us have that same opinion. I don't know if you have that same opinion too, if you're on the IRB. And then the whole idea of like the deck, like, what is that? I don't even know. That's a source of stress for me and my family. That's for sure. So if it is for you too, let us know in the comments. But I know that veterans prior to 2006 don't quite have the same, and maybe I'm generalizing here, but don't quite have the same concerns. But I'd like to know more about that too. Like, are veterans prior to 2006 and the Veteran Wellbeing Act more secure with their monthly, I don't want to call it a pension because it's not a pension, but with their monthly income from VAC? That's something I'd like to know too, because it never seems clear. Never seems clear to me. And then like I arbitrarily got more money the other day and I was like, okay, where'd that come from? I don't know. I guess I got a new decision. So, okay, thanks for the extra cash. And then, the whole, PCVRS, which I don't know why they exist other than I think it's a huge insurance scam. That's my take and I'm sticking to it. And then the education benefit, which I can't access. I have tens of thousands of dollars that I've tried numerous times. I was literally in school. They're like, no, you can't use it. We didn't approve that. Like, I know because I got it after I was already in a master's program. And then they said, well, yeah, too bad, so sad. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why wouldn't you just say, hey, yeah, cool. You already went back to school before. Awesome. Yeah, we'll cover the costs. Just send us the receipts. Can't use it. Can't use it for any of the business courses I've taken because they're like, man, it doesn't relate to your plan. I'm like, what's my plan? Oh, you have to ATIP it. Oh, fuck. Like, what do you mean I have to ATIP my plan? That doesn't make any sense. So many things have not made sense. And this is just my experience. I can't talk for everybody because I think literally everybody has a completely different experience because the system isn't standardized. So anyways, this was just an episode to kind of get into the issues with, wartime veterans and the convoluted policies that are around it. So slowly but surely we'll get into it. I hope to get a politician on here at some point that is brave enough to actually talk to somebody, not in a controlled MSM interview type setting, but just a conversation. So one day I hope that happens. One day I hope we can get somebody that would gladly come on and talk to somebody who's not going to give them any softball questions. But we'll see. Canada's got a long way to go before folks kind of accept that. So that's it for me, guys. I'm toast. And thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We're going live again on Thursday. And just to recap, don't forget, there is the 30 Lean Challenge that is going on next week. And we're looking for participants, man. We got 153. The link is here. It's in the comments, but I'll be dropping it in the description as well. If you're looking to lose a few pounds and get the engine started, start that journey, this is the place to be. It's for us, by us. And we can see here, we got 153 folks that are willing to get after it. I'd love for you to be one of those new folks. So doors close on Sunday at 2300. So get your registration in, get signed up. We'll see you on the challenge. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and hit the bell notification on this channel or whatever channel you're on so that the algorithm knows you like Dave Morrill stuff. All right, that's it for me. Have a good rest of the week. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Peace.